Welcome to another video. It's Wednesday, as you can see, so it's a bit different to our usual schedule. We do now upload on a Saturday and a Wednesday, so hopefully you can all keep up. Also, I wanted to thank everyone for 50 subscribers. It means a great deal to me. I've got two stories for you today, so hope you enjoy them. It all started with a Craigslist ad. I had just moved into a new apartment, and being the broke postgrad that I am, I had pretty much nothing to my name, except maybe a few boxes of stuff from my parents' house and a busted up box spring mattress. At that point, most days I was sitting cross-legged on the floor in the living room, eating off paper plates while binging Netflix from my laptop for hours at a time. Clearly, this was no way to live, and so I decided to log onto my neighbour's unprotected Wi-Fi and hunt for some furniture. This way I could at least binge Netflix from the comfort of a couch. You ever search for a couch on Craigslist? It's not great. Half the couches on there are held together with duct tape, and the other half are covered in stains of dubious origin. I may be broke as hell, but I'm not that broke. I have standards. I had to have been scrolling for well over an hour, and was probably already a week into a backlog. I was going to quit, but decided to give a page a refresh before calling it a day. The moment I refreshed, it caught my eye. The ad was right at the top, not even a minute old, listed as brand new couch, never used, free for pickup. Brand new sounded pretty good to me, so I went ahead and opened it. The couch was in perfect condition, almost suspiciously perfect, but there were no stains, no lumps, no broken legs. I wasn't one to look a gift horse in the mouth, so I decided out of a quick response that I'd be willing to take it off their hands, and then prayed that no one had beat me to it. I got a response less than 5 minutes later. Yeah, the couch is all yours if you can come by and pick it up today. I'm available until 8, so be sure to get out here by then. You might want to leave soon. I was slightly confused by that last part until I saw the address. The place was way out in the boonies, way far, nestled in part of the country reserved for mountain men and hillbillies. I was hesitant. It was a long drive to the back country there. No one could hear you scream, but as I sat there in my sparse living room on the bare floor, I realised that I really needed that couch, and it was probably safe. People almost always walk that way from Craigslist deals alive. Usually it was a stupid thing to do, but I did it anyways. I typed out another quick reply that I'd be headed out right now, and thanked them for the couch. And then I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the door and hopped in my truck. Plugged the address into Google Maps and was on my way. As I drove down the interstate, I began to appreciate just how far I was going to get one piece of furniture. The cityscape soon gave way to suburban housing developments, and those developments soon gave way to a vast bush of the middle of nowhere. I never really understood why people would want to be so far removed from society, but to each their own, I guess. I'd been driving through mountains and valleys for the better part of an hour when Google Maps finally spoke up. In 500 feet, take exit 23 for Arbor Road. I sighed in relief. I was getting closer. As I got off the freeway, Google chimed in again. Take the next right on Arbor Road. I made my way deeper and deeper into the countryside. Giant oaks leaned over stretches of the road, and every so often a squirrel would tempt fate and dash through the road in front of me. It was deserted. I don't think I saw another car since I had got on off the freeway. In 200 feet, take the next left into Gable Lane. I jumped a little when Google broke the silence, but quickly regained my senses and slowed down to take the left. Turn left onto Gable Lane. But I couldn't see it. There didn't seem to be any road at all, just woods and brush. I stopped in the middle of the road. I could see the path at the map, but there should be a road. I pulled my car forward slowly, searching the street that should be there, and then I saw it. Just barely. It's like the woods were trying to hide it. It was almost completely overgrown on the sides. Brush piled high on both sides, spilling out onto the asphalt. The sign was literally being swallowed up by a tree, the words Abel Lan poked out from beneath the bark. I'll be honest, I nearly turned around right there. This is a part of a horror movie where the idiots college kids to turn around and spend spring break in Cabo like everyone else, but I'd been driving forever and turning around there would have meant wasting the afternoon and about half a tank of gas. I'm frugal, I feel a little stupid, so I took the left and pushed past the overgrown brush onto Gable Lane. From there it wasn't as spooky as you'd think. Gable Lane opened up once again onto a proper road and I was on my way once more, and then 10 minutes later the road stopped, or rather, the asphalt did. Big clouds of dust filled the air as my truck hit a dirt road. I did a quick check on my map just to be sure I hadn't taken a wrong turn, but the app confirmed I was going in the right direction. I drove down the dirt road for a good 5 minutes when Google Maps chimed in again. In half a mile, take a right of a gnarled oak tree. That was odd. Since when did Google Maps start giving directions like a clerk or a liquor store at a liquor store? Does Google Map even use landmarks in their directions? But sure enough, I'm half a mile down the road. A huge oak tree stood, old and twisted, half of its leaves missing, and at its base was another dirt road, much less travelled, nearly overrun with tall grass. I took the left and continued down the road. The next 15 minutes was a rabbit trail of different roads and landmarks that took me deeper and deeper into the woods. Turn left at a pile of rocks, turn left at a broken down tractor, turn right into the grove of trees. I had nearly reached my breaking point, which I admit I probably should have reached far sooner, when a road in front of me stopped dead. There was no asphalt, no dirt, just a wall of trees and bushes. I couldn't drive any farther. I was pissed. Google had screwed up. It took me on a wild goose chase through the middle of nowhere, likely way far from my destination, and now some other lucky bastard was going to get my free couch. Take the wooden footpath ahead for 100 yards. I snapped out of my anger. What did it just say? I looked at my phone. The instructions had turned from car directions to walking directions. The little walking man icon now highlighted on my screen. I looked up and through the glare on the windshield I could see it. Straight ahead there was a small break in the bushes, behind which I could see a series of wooden logs half buried in the dirt, forming a path through the trees. Again, had I more sense, I would have turned back then, but I'm nothing if not persistent, so instead I climbed out of my truck, locked it, and headed down through the trees and down the path. The path wound up and down the hillside, through the trees, around prickly bushes, and soon my truck was out of sight. It started to occur to me that even if I found the house and got the couch, I was going to have to lug all the way back to my truck. That was going to be a gigantic pain in the ass. I could only hope the couch giver would lend me a hand. I was pretty far down the path when Google spoke again. After the bend, take a left along the riverbank. I could hear the water before I saw it. As I rounded the bend, a large, rushing river came into view. It didn't look deep, but it didn't look good. I was glad Google wasn't making me ford it, as I did as I instructed and almost left it alongside the river. Google chimed in almost immediately. In 200 feet, take the fallen tree over the river. Of course I was going to have to cross the damn river. It wasn't long before I saw the tree. It was a huge and long dead, devoid of any leaves and dry as a bone. It lay across the river, resting on either side of a bank. The river ran below it, a bit calmer than when I first saw, but I still wasn't keen on falling in. Take the fallen tree over the river. I took a deep breath, scrambled over the roots, and hoisted myself up the dead tree. Why the hell not? I'd come this far. Even if it was a no couch at the end of it, at least I'd have a fun story to tell. It was a slightly scary trip across the dead tree. I was certain at some point my foot would break through a rotted patch and I'd turn my ankle or go sprawling into the river below, but aside from a few worrying creaks and cracks, I got to the other end with no problem. Google had started talking again before my feet even touched the ground on the other side. Take the path in the thicket ahead for 400 yards. Alright Google, you're the boss. I proceeded through the thicket again, almost enjoying myself at this point. I was bushwhacking like some old school adventurer, except the hidden treasure I was seeking was a sofa instead of a holy grail. Along the way, Google kept feeding me instructions. Take a right around the large boulder. Take the embankment up to your left. Keep straight past the hornet's nest. In 50 feet, take a right past a rotten stump. Looking back, the directions were impossible. How the hell would Google know that a hornet's nest would be on that tree? There's no way they were sending people down there to block directions to send some redneck's house in the butt crack of nowhere. But I was tired and stubborn, and in the moment it barely registered. I know what you're thinking. I am not a smart man. You're not wrong. I had just finished wading through a sea of bushes when it came into what I can only describe as a hollow. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's what I'm calling it. The forest cleared out in front of a perfect circle, maybe 40 feet in every direction. The branches of the ancient trees joined together above me, shutting out the sun, casting the entire area in shadow, and in the middle of the hollow was a large, stony outcropping jutting out of the ground like a brutal molar. And in the middle of the outcropping was an opening. I stepped out into the hollow and could feel the temperature drop. I stopped dead. This wasn't right. I nearly jumped when Google spoke up. Enter the cave. And that was it. I was done. Like hell, I was going into some creepy cave in the woods for a damn couch. I'll put up with a good amount of nonsense, but I have my limits. I turned to leave and, hoping I could get back to my car on the main road before the sun went down, Google piped up again. Enter the cave. Yeah, no thanks. I stepped towards the exit of the hollow and hadn't even gone 2 steps before it interjected once more. The way back is closed. Enter the cave. What do you mean the way back is closed? I shouted at my phone. I'm going back to my truck. You do not know how to get back. You will get lost. I stopped dead and chills went down my spine. I stared at my phone for a few seconds before raising it to my mouth. Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. I was on the verge of pissing my pants. I could feel myself begin to shake. I clenched my fists, took a few deep breaths before panic could overtake me. I steeled myself and shouted back at my phone. I'm not going to that frigging cave. I'm going back to the truck. You do not know the way back. And then the fear gave way to anger. I was fully prepared to get into the argument with my phone right then and there when I realised I was right. Google must have given me 20 different directions since I left my car, and they were all basically down unmarked paths. There was no way I could find my way back without Google, and Google was now going to help me. If I tried to find my way, I'd be stuck in Deliverance country in the middle of the night alone. I considered phoning for help, but my reception was dead. The bars replaced with a big fat circle with a slash through it. Enter the cave. I clenched my jaw. I didn't have much of a choice. I was basically hosed no matter what I chose to do. I turned around looking into the mouth of the cave. It was pitch black. A gaping maw in the middle of a rock, and that's where I had to go. I approached it, slowly, carefully, as if the entrance was a wild animal waiting to swallow me whole. As I reached the entrance, I could smell the fetid aroma of damp, dead leaves. The air around the entrance was even colder than the air at the beginning of the hollow. The chilling air wrapped around my chest almost as if it meant to drag me into the depths. I looked down at the shining light on my phone screen. Google smoke once more. Enter the cave. I took a deep shuddering breath, closed my eyes, and with all the courage I could muster, I stepped into the cave. The moment I stepped into the cave, it was like all light blinked out of existence. It was darker than dark, completely pitch black. I turned my phone around, holding it in front of me like a priest with a crucifix trying to banish the darkness away. It didn't work. I still couldn't see a thing. Google Maps spoke up. Continue forward for 150 feet, then turn right. I couldn't stop from chuckling to myself. A fat lot of good directions were when I couldn't see the hands in front of my face. I stumbled forward a few steps before the realization struck me. My phone had a flashlight app. I turned my phone back around and fumbled through my home screen until I found the app. I tapped it, and after a few seconds a nice strong beam of light from the back-mounted LED cut through the darkness and into the cave in front of me. Honestly, the cave wasn't terribly impressive, pretty darn average as far as I could tell. The floor was dirt littered with dead leaves and rocks, vines hung from the ceiling, and the walls were solid stone. I reached out a hand and touched the walls. I withdrew it quickly. It was ice cold. I shivered. What the hell was I doing here? Continue forward for 150 feet, then turn right. Yeah, I replied, holding the phone back in front of me and making my way into the cave. The next stretch of time was basically uneventful. I took the next right I saw, and from then on was mostly just a series of lefts and rights through the rocky, winding passages. If anything was remarkable, it was how deep the tunnel seemed to go. I'd been walking for maybe 15 minutes. That may seem like a short amount of time, but you can cover a lot of distance. Even just walking, this cave system was vast, and I was only covering a short distance of it. After a while, Google's voice broke through the silence. In 20 feet, take the passage to the left. Whatever you say, Google. I moved steadily forward, switching from looking ahead to checking the map on the screen. Soon I came to the turn. Take the passage on the left. I shined the flashlight to my left. A deep fissure ran through from the ceiling to the floor of the cave. It was wide, but not exactly human-friendly. I can't go through there, I scoffed. It's way too small. I turned the flashback back to the wide-open passage in front of me. Why can't I just go this way? They wait for you down that path. Do not go there. Well, that was creepy. I felt an involuntary shudder run through my spine. Who's waiting for me down there, I asked. Take the passage on the left. Okay, fine, be a cryptic arsehole. Honestly, I was tempted to say just screw it and go down the broad path anyways. For all I knew, that was the way out, and Google Maps was digging me further and further into a dead end. I shined the light down the path once more. It would be easier, but then again, the more I looked down that broad passageway, the more something felt off. I couldn't place it, but you know that feeling you get where your whole body just seems to be screaming at you that something's not right, like your subconscious is reading the situation way more clearly than you are, and it's telling you to stay the hell away. Yeah, I was beginning to get that in spades. It wasn't until a few days later, looking back, that I realised what was wrong. The path was completely dark. About 10 feet ahead of me, I don't mean dark like the rest of the cave, I mean completely black. My flashlight didn't illuminate anything 10 feet down the path, not the walls, not the floor, nothing. It's like the darkness just swallowed the light, kept it from getting any further. Who knows what would have happened if I'd have gone down that path even just a short distance. I still get the shivers just thinking about it. I turned the flashlight back down towards the fissure inside. I guessed I was doing this. I steeled myself and then phone first began to squeeze myself through a giant crack in the wall. Now I'm not super hefty, but I'm not exactly as sticky either. It was a tight squeeze. At several points I had to breathe out a bit so I could fit through the hard, gritty hole in the wall. Luckily it only took me a few moments to get through. The crack itself was only a couple of feet deep, and soon I was on the other side. I turned the flashlight into the area in front of me. It was bigger than I was expecting. I figured I'd just end up in some tunnels, but this was an entire chamber, maybe 30 feet high, 25 feet wide. Along the wall, broad outcroppings of rock stuck out at odd angles, creating lopsided shelves all the way to the ceiling. Climb to the top. What, I asked? Climb to the top. I shined my light up the wall, past the rocky shelves and to the ceiling. It took me a few seconds and then I saw it. It was a long, broad crack where the ceiling met the wall. It was even smaller than the fissure in the tunnel. You're kidding me, I breathed. But at that point, I was starting to get over the stupid crap Google was asking me to do, arguing with it wasn't helpful, and honestly, giving up going back seemed less and less likely as an option, but I walked over to the far wall and lugged my tired self up onto the first rocky shelf. I wasn't exactly thrilled to be climbing up a rock wall. I'm not in great shape. I went to a climbing gym once, tried bouldering. I fell and landed weird, nearly tore my ACL. So clinging to the side of the cave wall wasn't my idea of a good time, but I kept at it. Shelf after rocky shelf, I made my way up the wall. Some shelves were really broad, enough for me to lie on my back and catch my breath for a minute. Some were butt-clenchingly narrow, requiring me to lean flat against the wall and hope to God I didn't lean back an inch too far. Whenever I had a solid enough ground, I'd turn my phone around and shine it down to the floor below. That wasn't a particularly good idea. 30 feet always looks much higher when you're at the top of it than when you're at the bottom, but I did it anyways. I guess I'm just curious like that. After what seemed like forever, I hauled myself up onto the last shelf and rolled over onto my back. My breath breathing ragged, I had done it. I just climbed to the top. I was contemplating just lying there and napping for a bit when my damn phone spoke up again. Continue forward for 30 yards. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to will away the annoyance. I gave myself a minute and rolled over, shining my flashlight at the space between the wall and the ceiling. My heart stopped. It was a long, deep gash in the wall, maybe a foot tall. It made the fissure in a tunnel look like a full thoroughfare. Oh God, I whispered to myself, oh God, oh God, oh God. I could feel myself begin to panic. But I clenched my eyes shut and took a few calming breaths. I couldn't be freaking out right now, not if I was going to wedge myself into a rocky crevice deep underground. After a few moments of silently psyching myself up, I rolled onto my belly, held my phone out in front of me, and a soldier crawled into the crack in the wall. I should tell you, I'm not claustrophobic, not in the least. I found myself in all sorts of tight spaces in life. Closets, crowded subway cars, a car truck at one point. Tight spaces have never fazed me, but in that moment, crammed literally between a rock and a hard place, you get claustrophobic really fast. As I made my way slowly, inch by inch, dragging my belly over the rough limestone, I could feel my whole body trying to rebel, trying to stop me from going farther, but there wasn't any going back at this point. Crawling forwards was difficult enough, crawling backwards would have been impossible. So I kept going, mentally, telling myself to shut the hell up and push forwards. Soldier crawling by the way is a lot of damn work. You'd think climbing 30 feet up a brick wall is tough, but crawling on your belly, wriggling in the dirt, a hard floor below you and a sharp rock ceiling scraping at you from above is exhausting. You use every muscle you have, even some you didn't know existed. Despite the icy cold at the cave behind me, I was now drenched in sweat from the salty drops falling into my eyes, burning until I could free one of my hands to wipe them away. But I kept at it, scrapes and sweat and exhaustion be damned. Every so often I would stop, holding my phone in front of me to see where I was going, but it didn't illuminate much. The rock extended out for what seemed like forever. It was about as disheartening as you can imagine. No end in sight, but Google had said I needed to go forward 30 yards. I'd reach the end soon enough. And I did reach the end. I had been crawling in this godforsaken rocky tomb for at least half an hour, if not longer, when Google finally spoke up again. In 10 feet, exit into the tunnel passage ahead. Praise the Lord, once Google told me I only needed to drag myself a few more feet, I was re-energized. I felt stronger, more resilient. I pressed forward foot by foot until I felt the edge of the crack in front of me. I could feel the cold air on my scratched and worn hands. I grabbed the edge and made to pull myself forward, and then I got stuck. For a second I thought I'd just braced myself up against a wall awkwardly, but when I tried to move my leg again it wouldn't budge. It had wedged itself between the ceiling and the floor. I tried to look back to see if I could unstick myself, but it was pitch black. And then I did something really stupid as my mechanic began to grow. I moved my phone around, trying to shine the light towards my leg, and that's when I dropped it. I could hear it clatter on the floor below, maybe 10 feet down. I lost my composure. As I struggled to feel my leg, I could feel the ceiling pushing in. I could feel the floor rise up. My other leg soon lodged between a rock as well, refusing to move. I reached one arm down, trying to pull my leg free, but it brought me at an odd angle, and I found myself on my side, wedged tightly in the rock, completely immobile. I tried everything I could to no avail. More than once I thrashed against the rocks and banged my head hard against the ceiling. I could feel the stone cutting into my arms, peeling away at my skin as the rock began to close in around me. My breathing became erratic, my blood pulsed past my eardrums, and I could feel the pounding of my heart as it threatened to jump straight out of my chest. And then I could feel the rock against me, drumming around alongside me as if the cave was alive, a deep moving thrum joining my heart in a psychotic rhythm. And once again I could feel the walls pressing in as I began to thrash once more, trying to free myself, trying to haul myself out of that damned crack in the wall. I could feel my lungs going. My panicked breathing became shorter and weaker, failing to fill with air I needed. I could have sworn my ribs began to crack, and at long last I let out a piercing wail, a desperate cry for help, and over my screaming in the darkness I heard it. Do not struggle. Be still. I stopped dead. It was dead. It was a little distant, but completely audible. If you struggle, you will stay stuck. You must relax. Google was calling out to me from wherever I had dropped it, and for some reason it worked. That damn phone had done nothing but annoy the hell out of me all day, and now in the middle of hell, it calmed me down. I stopped thrashing. I stopped screaming. I stopped trying to free my limbs from the rocky vice around me. Breathe. I obeyed the phone, taking the air as slowly and as calmly as possible. I could feel the rock tighten around me as it filled my lungs. I ignored it. I closed my eyes and just focused on my breathing, on my heartbeat. I shut out everything else. The cuts, the bruises, the rocks, the sweat, the blood, and at long last, I could almost feel the rock pull away, as if it had decided to finally just let me go. From the darkness, Google's voice rang out once more. Exit the passage ahead. And I did. I had relaxed enough that, with a little rocking back and forth, I could free my arm from my side. Once I was back on my belly, I kicked my legs back and felt them dislodge from the rock behind me. And then I grabbed the edge of the crack with both my aching arms and pulled myself out into the cave. Luckily the drop wasn't as high as I thought, maybe 5 feet. I tumbled to a rock and flopped over onto my back, gulping in the damp, cool air of the open passageway. I lay there for what must have been 10 minutes, and Google must have been trying to be considerate because I didn't hear a peep for a long time. And then once I had regained my composure, a light a few feet to my left turned on and Google spoke. Continue left down the path for about half a mile. I pulled myself up onto an elbow and reached out and grabbed my phone. Luckily the screen hadn't cracked in the fall. I looked at it bemusedly. Really? I can't rest for 5 more minutes. Continue left down the path for half a mile. I rolled my eyes and hauled myself onto my feet, maybe a little too quickly. My body cried out from the bruises and cuts and stiff muscles, but I shook it off and half walked, half limped my way down the passageway. Luckily none of the half mile was interesting, no squeezing through fissures, no climbing rocks, no creepy, unexplainable darkness ahead, and then slowly but surely, the darkness around me seemed to lighten. The walls around me became clearer and more defined, and I was able to switch the flashlight on my phone off. I was rounding a corner when Google spoke up. In 100 feet, enter the light. And soon enough, 100 feet ahead, shining bright in the distance of the tunnel exit. Bright light poured into the tunnel. I almost feel the warmth on my skin cupping through the frigid air onto my heart. My heart skipped a beat and my spirit began to lift. A smile crept over my face as I walked through the light, happy to be leaving this dank hellhole at last. As it turns out, the light was even worse. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first 2 parts of that story. We've got 1 more left. Not as long, quite as long as that one, but I sure hope you enjoy it. I know there are lots of knowledgeable people in this sub, and I need your help. My family is trying to kill me. Yesterday I went to my grandparents' house in the countryside. The whole family was there. It isn't something out of the ordinary for us. We went there up pretty often for dinner, so everyone can be together. I love these occasions, but yesterday was different. My father was driving us there, but all of them were so silent. It was so unusual. When they got there, we had dinner in silence. Everyone just looked so sad. First I thought that somebody died, but everyone was there fine, and well, Grandpa, Grandma, my uncle, my aunt and my cousins. So I went to watch TV with my grandpa while the others went to another room, which was unusual too. I heard arguing coming through the door, and at that point I was 100% sure something bad happened. A few minutes later I heard someone say, "Fine, I'll do it." And my mother opened the door and asked me if I could come in there for a second. I thought that they would tell me the bad news now. I was prepared. I entered the room. All of them were stood there standing in front of me. My aunt stepped closer. She just whispered a silent, "I'm sorry." Then she pulled a knife in behind her bag and thrust towards me. I was lucky I could move out of the way. She only got my upper arm, but the cut's really bad. I ran out of the room as fast as I could, then out of the house onto the streets, bare feet in the middle of the winter without a coat and with a bleeding upper arm. Of course they came after me like a savage horde goes after a wounded prey. I ran. I was sprinting down the street while losing blood. I just tried to somehow hold the cut so I couldn't leave a trail behind. I ran to a forest. That's the only place I had the chance to lose them. I know that place like the back of my hand. I grew up there. Nothing else had the interest hiking in my family, so I had a big advantage. I knew where I was. I just had to go 5 miles north to be out of the forest and another 7 miles northeast to arrive in my shitty little apartment. But first I had to cross a river. Rough, but doable. I ran in the direction of the river to the part I knew the water was shallow enough so I can cross without getting entirely wet. When I arrived and was ready to cross, I heard footsteps from behind me. It was my grandma. I thought that was it. The end. I know she owns a shotgun. Thought she was about to shoot me into the river. Nobody would suspect a few shots this far from the village. Then she told me that nobody else is coming through here for a while and she won't hurt me. I asked why they're doing this. I did nothing wrong. I begged for an explanation and I got what I wanted. She told me that I died once before when I was 3 years old. I fell down the stairs and hit my head so hard I immediately lost consciousness. A few minutes later I'd stopped breathing and I was dead, completely lifeless. When my mum saw me, she started screaming. She broke down and was on the brink of insanity when she started to speak to somebody. Something invisible, something unnatural. She made a deal. Then I opened my eyes and started crying like a newborn. I was alive again. She also told me that even though she would never hurt me, she couldn't stop them. She just simply didn't know if I was her real grandson, the same that she lost many years ago. I heard this story before, of course not like this. I knew I fell down the stairs when I was young, but I thought I was rushed to the hospital. The doctor stitched me up, and that's it. I guess they had to explain the scar on my head somehow. After this story, I stood in shock. I couldn't believe it. It had to be some kind of sick joke, but the cut on my arm told me otherwise. I had to run if I wanted to live to see another day, so I did. I crossed the freezing river and I ran until I couldn't breathe anymore. My heart was pounding, my veins almost exploded, and on top of that, blood was slowly seeping out of my arm. But I finally made it. I locked myself into my apartment and I'm waiting for them to arrive. Maybe this is the last thing I will write, maybe not. I just want to figure this all out before they give me back. Well, that's the second of our stories tonight, and that would be the last. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's slightly longer than usual, but I wasn't planning on that. Without further ado, I'll speak to you again on Saturday, and as always, drop a comment below, hit the like button if you enjoyed, and if you really enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button for more videos. Good night.